Hello everyone, it's Natasha from Treasure Books. So today I have a fun little project. These are pen loops. They are removable pen loops. So the idea for these is to have them clipped in your journals, on your covers or on the first page. So you always have a pen loop with you, one that you can easily move from journal to journal or, remove or whatever. So I'm going to use this journal just to demonstrate. So for example, I could have this on the cover like so. So I always have my pen with me. I'm always losing my pen and I can never find my favorite pen. So I wanted to make something to keep my favorite pen with my journal at all times. So it can be applied to the cover if you have a plain cover like this, like there's not, no book plate and stuff like that. Or for example, on the first page in the journal, something like this. And there we go. And that just looks so beautiful and it's very handy and it's removable. And best of all, it's very easy to make. Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you two different methods of making these pen loops. The first method is using a sewing machine. So we want to have a way of attaching our elastic and securing the sides in a way that it will keep your pen loop sturdy and you'll be able to use it for years. You don't want it falling apart. So the first method I'm going to demonstrate is the sewing machine method. Now for those of you who don't have a sewing machine or who prefer not to use a sewing machine on thick cardstock, I'm going to show you the alternative method of doing those things, securing everything in place without using a sewing machine. So we start off pretty much the same for both methods. So I am going to do concurrently. I'll show you one and then I'll show you the other, because you might want to do a mixture of things. You might want to do some with the sewing machine and some without. So I suggest we get started. So here is my list of steps. Now this is very detailed list, so it's not as complicated as it looks, but let's get started. First thing you need to do is choose a base. I'm just going to cover this here for a moment. So you want your base to be sturdy. I have used things like cereal boxes, things that I get in the mail, something like it's quite sturdy. So another cereal box. This is cardstock, a bit less thick than cardstock. Sorry, cereal box. So something like that. And then this here, I've used this, you can see on these two. That's what I've used. So basically this is just printer paper and I have some book pages on top. So this was left over from my paper bags project. So I've even used this and it's not very thick. So, but you want it to be sturdy so that that it lasts a long time. So today what I'm going to do as I demonstrate, I'm going to use cereal box. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is choose an elastic. When choosing an elastic, you don't want anything that's too narrow or you don't want anything that's too wide. So the one that I have here is approximately half an inch. So that's just, an approximate, I guess. You don't want those really thin ones because they might lose their elasticity, or I don't know. I just feel like this is more sturdy. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to cut your base to the preferred size. Now, the size that I have used approximately is 5 inches by 2.5 inches. So 5 inches length, 2.5 height. You can see that my paper clips are all different sizes because I wasn't measuring anything. I was just, wanted to, play around. So you can choose whatever size you want. But I didn't want to have really narrow paper clips because then they might move a lot. So I think that perhaps something like this, this is a square really, but something like this I feel like is a bit more, it will stay in there clipped. It's not going to go up and down as you putting your pen in and out. So that's one thing you can sort of think about. Okay, so the one that I'm going to use today is 5 by 2.5 inches. So the next thing we do is, see how quickly we're going through this? So many steps, but it's really quite simple. I feel like you guys can't see what I'm doing, so I'm going to do this. All right, so the next thing we want to do is you want to fold it in half. So the cereal box part obviously is going to go inside because I don't want it to be seen. And now I'm just going to fold it in half. And then I want to make sure that my edge is as crisp as possible. So I'm just going to go over it with my bone folder, just like so. Or you can use, you know, scissors. You can use whatever you have if you don't have a bone folder. Okay, so once we have folded it in half, just because I like to, you know, take that extra little bit of time to make sure everything is secure. Next thing we do is I mean, this is completely optional. It's just something that I like to do. Because we will be cutting a slit through that fold, I want to make sure that that fold is as sturdy as possible. So I just add a little bit of masking tape. It's really no big deal. I just put a little bit of masking tape. You can use washi tape or whatever. Just in there in the fold before I actually, you know, cut the slit. So, okay, next thing we're doing is we want to mark the width of the elastic into the fold so we can cut the slit, right? So what I do is, this is my elastic that I'm using. I just sort of eyeball where the middle is approximately, and then just mark approximately how wide my elastic is. So I've got my 2 points there, and now I'm going to draw a line through just so I have a guide on where to cut my slit. So the slit that I'm going to cut, I want it to be right in the middle, right in that fold. I'm going to cut that slit. So once I do that, I will show you up close. So I'm just using my, whatever it's called, utility knife and my metal ruler. Okay, so I have cut a slit. You can't see it there, but you'll be able to see it here. You can see it's right in the middle, right in that fold. And I like to cut the slit slightly smaller than my elastic rather than slightly larger, because if it's too large, then you can't fix it. If it's too small, you can cut a little bit more. So once that's cut, we want to pull the elastic through. So I'm folding, I know it's hard to see because it's black elastic, but I'm folding about this much. So I'm just going, so I just fold it and then run it through. It will all make sense in a minute, I promise. And then I just want to gently pull it through. I don't want to make that slit any larger than it needs to be. And then you want to leave approximately, you know, this might be a bit too much. So if you have a skinny pen, it's not going to, you know, it can fall out. So I think we can do about, yeah, I think that's all right. Okay, so I've got my elastic through. I've got a little bit of extra elastic inside. You need to have a little bit of extra elastic. And then I'm just going to cut this large part off because we don't need it anymore. And now I'm left with something that looks like this. So now the next thing is you want to secure this elastic, but you want to secure it to one side. You don't want to sort of put it down like this and then sew right through, because then you won't be able to put your paper clip inside. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do now is we're going to sew, or, you know, I'll show you the alternative method. We're going to attach these both pieces of our elastic to one side, okay, to one side only, and we're going to leave the other side open so that when we're finished with our paper, with our pen loop, we can put this in there. All right. So the first method, I'm going to go to my sewing machine. I don't have a setup to show you how I do, you know, what I do here. But one thing to keep in mind is that the side that you attach your elastics on becomes your front, because you have the paper clip here, and that's the back. Okay, so that's just one thing to remember. So what I do in this section for the sewing method is I hold this down like so, take this to my sewing machine and just run it through, and I do a straight stitch right there. So just a straight stitch right through my sewing machine, and I make sure that both of my flaps of the elastic are held down, and then I do the sewing machine. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll show you the alternative method. Okay, so I've sewn that through. I actually turned it this way and sewn right through on my sewing machine, just because I wanted to make sure that the elastic is held in place. You don't want it to sort of move around. So okay, so now that I've done that, I'm just going to tie knots, 2 little knots here, and then we'll continue. Okay, so now for our alternative method, I have pulled the elastic through. So now what we want to do is, of course, we want to attach both of our little elastic pieces to one side of the cardboard. Keep in mind that the side that you attach these to is your front. If you have some, you know, embellishments or patterns on your cardstock, you might want to keep that in mind. So what I want to do now is, our aim is to attach the 2 pieces of elastic to one side of the cardboard. So I'm just going to, I'm using this quick drying, I think acetone based glue. It dries very quickly. That's why I like this glue. You want to use a glue that's going to be sturdy, that's going to, you know, stay in place. I probably wouldn't do hot glue, even though it dries very quickly, but it will add more bulk, and I don't know how, you know, it will hold with the constant use. So okay, so I'm just, now I have attached this to one side. That's obviously not dry yet, but I just need to hold it down a little bit more. If you have Fabri-Tac, I think Fabri-Tac is a really good glue. It's quick drying, and you know, you use it on fabric and cardstock and paper, whatever. So you want to glue like that. So after I have glued that down, the reason why you will see here, glue both elastic pieces and add a brad to secure. So I just want to, I've got it glued down, but then as an extra step to make sure that that elastic is not going anywhere, because remember, you'll be putting the pen in and out, and there'll be stress onto here. Will be, you know, putting a lot of stress there. You want to make sure that that's not going to move, and it's not going to go anywhere and fall apart on you, which is why I decided to put a brad right through there. So right through the cardstock and the elastic to hold it in place. So I am going to do that now. I'm just using something like this. So yeah, okay. This is a tiny little bit tricky because it's quite hard to put these through an elastic, but just work with it. It's not easy, but just, you know, keep trying. So I am going to poke a hole there. And you know, I do that now and then. I mean, that glue is not dried yet, but it will be. Once I put my brad there and I leave it alone for a moment, it will dry. So here we go for the brad part. So as I'm trying to push it through, Okay, so that brad has come through, and now I just want to open up the little feet, so that's holding the elastic in place, and I just want to push it down to make it as flat as I possibly can. Okay, so that's glued down plus held down by a brad, and plus we have a little bit of something at the front, so that looks quite cool. Okay, so our next step is to close the flaps and secure. So basically what we want to do is we want to close these and make sure that they stay closed. Okay, so the first method is I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew right through the cardstock, both cardstock pieces. The needle that I use is just standard needle that came with my machine. I use my sewing machine for this only. I don't sew clothes or anything like that, so I'm not too precious with my sewing machine. It's just a standard needle I'm using. Okay, so now I'm going to go and sew these three sides together, and then I'll be back and then we will do this one. Okay, so the three sides have been sewn together, and now this cannot open. It's nice and secure. So I just like to put my phone there, tie the ends over here. Okay, so that's that one done, and then we'll come back to this to decorate. And now I want to secure this one, so you can glue it down. You have to keep in mind that if you are gluing it down, you just have to do the edges, because you don't want to glue all of this down, because then you won't be able to add your paper clip. I guess you could add a paper clip now. Let's just see. Yeah, I guess you can do that. You can add your paper clip and then glue it all down. Why not? Or what I like to do, because this looks really quite nice, wouldn't you agree? I like to secure them with some hand sewing. So how I do that is I'll just hand punch some holes. I'm using this little pokey tool that I have. You can use a thicker needle, or whatever you have, and then I just eyeball it. I'm not measuring anything. And then I just punch some holes through both cardstock pieces. You can do some patterns, like you can do, one hole here, then one up here, then one here, then one up here. That would look pretty cool. So now I want to choose embroidery floss. It doesn't have to be embroidery floss. It can just be, if you have thick thread like this, you can use something like that to hand stitch. What am I going to do? I'm gonna use white embroidery floss. Okay, so the needle I want to use for this is one that has, you don't want this part, the eye of the needle, to be too thick. So see how this needle is quite slim all the way to the top, as opposed to this needle, which has a wider top up here. That will just stretch the holes even more. So just one thing to keep in mind. Okay, so now I think I didn't measure this part, but I think maybe you need about 3 lengths of, around. I don't know. Let's do it now. Just approximately. Probably too much thread, but doesn't matter. So I thread my needle. I'm going to start here, and I want to leave an end here. You can see on this one I actually tied a knot at the back, whereas on this one I actually started here. I didn't poke any holes here. I started there, and then I have these little bits sticking up, which I really like too. So, but for this one I think I'm just going to start at the back here, and then I'll leave enough thread to tie a knot at the end. So hopefully, I think I'll have enough thread. And then, so we went from the back through, and now we're going, so we just keep going from the back in, from the back to the front. And then the next one, from the back to the front. From the back to the front, and then we do the same thing all the way around. Okay, so I'm here at the end. So now when you get to the end, if you're doing the tie at the back thing, once you get to the end, you actually end up at the front. So, but you want to end up at the back. So what I do, I don't know if it's the number of holes or whatever. So I don't, you know, try and work that out. But I'm just going to tie a knot at the back so I can come to the back. And then I'll go through it again. All right, so here I am. That was way too much thread. So thread wise. Okay, so now here at the back I'm going to do a square knot. So I'm going to go left over right, and then I always like to use my phone to keep things in place. So left over right, and then right over left. Cut it off. Okay, so what we have done is we have now secured the elastic and secured the sides. And that's that. I mean, this one's looking so much nicer already. I actually really like this hand stitched look. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is decorate the front. So there's a few different things that you can do. As you may notice here, I just layered some postage stamp and some lace sort of curtain type fabric, postage stamp, did a bit of collage here with some book page, and I have this, I don't know what this is, it's an offcut of something, and it's great for this type of thing. So I just chop a little piece of this and then, you know, layer on top. So another thing is here I've used just different fabrics, a bit of that, a bit of this lace, a bit of that, you know, just stapled it on. And you can staple a few pieces of fabric together and then glue it on the paper clip. So here, very simple. I mean, I don't know if you can see that, just a bit of muslin, a bit of cheesecloth, and a little bit of this tablecloth. That's actually tablecloth. This one's really cute. I just did a tiny little envelope, added a bit of lace up here. I might put something in there like a little note. I really like this one. It's really cute. Has a little bit of a closure there. Then I did like a book plate type thing and a sticker. This one says go for it. This is also a sticker. It says think of you. It's gold. So a few different bits and pieces you can do. This one's just got a little doily. So really this is where you do whatever you feel like doing. Let your imagination take you. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I will work something out. Okay, let's decorate. Okay, so I just had a quick look through my stash and I decided to do something like this. So here I just want to use just a little butterfly die cut. So maybe because I want to use it on the back of this, on this white fabric, I just inked it up a little bit to make it stand out. And I just want to shorten this tiny little bit with my pinking shears. I'm just going to glue it on. Okay, that one's done. And now on this one I've just got these paper flowers. There's two there. So what I will do is I will just put them all together with a brad. These brads are so handy to have. I use them in so many of my projects because they, you know, embellish and secure. So they're really handy to have. And I purchased a whole lot of, you know, you can get them really cheap at eBay or Amazon and stuff like that. Just, they're called brads. So there we go. And I also got them on, I get them wherever I can find them if they're cheap. Okay, so now I can secure that on there, but I think I want to add a little bit of a book page underneath. You know, the decorating is the fun part, so you can really, you know, anything goes with this step. So the main thing to keep in mind is you want your elastic secured, you want your sides secured, you don't want anything opening up, falling apart, and then decorating is the fun part. Okay, so now that we have decorated, our last step is to add a paper clip to the back. So just a quick note, with the paper clips, you want to use a larger paper clip. So for example, this is a small one, the standard size, I guess. And there's only, when you put it through, I don't know, it just, to me, it seems like it'll be more secure to use a larger paper clip. So it won't be sort of, as you're pulling your pen loop in and out of your journals and stuff, it just seems more secure to have a larger paper clip. So that's why I just have these in my stash. So this is what I use. And now the last step is simply just to slip the paper clip in. This is why it was so important when you are attaching your elastic to attach it to one side only, because you need to leave this side open to be able to put your paper clip through. So another thing that I also do is, just because, you know, this is totally probably unnecessary, but I just like to, I don't know, make everything nice and secure. What I did here is I just added a little bit of glue so that when I put my paper clip in there, it will stay in there. And I have to make sure I don't get it on my elastic, so I'm sort of holding my elastic away. I know it's difficult to see, but you'll work it out if you choose to do this step. So that's it. I didn't get any glue on my elastic. The glue is on the inside, and that's going to hold my paper clip in place. Okay, so now when you've finished your paper clips, your paper loops rather, you get to admire them and add them to your journals. So we have done two different methods, sewing machine method and the non-sewing machine, or the alternative method, I guess. And that is it. That completes today's tutorial. I hope that you find some inspiration. Let's see how this looks. Fabulous, fabulous. I hope that you go and you make some of your own. I think it's such a nice addition to a journal, especially if you're gifting it to someone. Quite beautiful. And if you have something like this with a little envelope, you can have a little note in there. So you can just, you know, possibilities are endless with this sort of thing. Okay, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you make some of your own. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Bye!